Okay, here I'm going to talk about constant functions. When we work with classes, it's important for a programmer to know if a function will change data members or not change data members. So for instance, in these constructors, they clearly change the data members because their job is to set each of the data members to an initial state. Get functions really don't change the data members, they just return them. And here we have one set function. This is, usually you'll have four set functions. I'm not really sure why the author of the textbook here just has one set inventory function, but nonetheless. So these four functions do not change the part number or the description or the on hand or the price. The other three functions do. So what you'll generally find in a function is that these are going to be constant functions. And we denote that by putting the reserved word const right here after each of the prototypes and before the functions. So what this means to a programmer is they know if they call this function, it's not going to change any of the data members. If I call get part number, it just returns the part number. Okay, so often in a class, you'll see these written as constant functions. If you have a display function, that's another example because you're just displaying things, not changing them, that might be constant. Now, we know that you can write these get functions inline as I have here. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write that function in the inventory item.cpp instead, just to show you what constant functions look like if they're not inline functions. So I'm going to come over here. So remember, you always have the option to write them inline if they're short, like one line of code, or write them in the CPP file. So here I just want to show you in my header file, oops, that's a good example of showing you, you have to have const here in the prototype, and then in the implementation file, you also have to have const. If you don't have it in both places, it's not going to work. So again, this is just, alternate syntax, demonstrating what it means to be a constant function. So, the program runs the same as it did before. The only difference is that we're using that reserved word const to denote which of the functions are constant, so that programmers can be sure if they call those functions, it doesn't change the data members. And this will also become important in one of the next videos. We're going to talk about constant reference parameters, and making functions constant when appropriate is really important when you use those.